purpose of this space is to create a very safe environment for people to share a moment of their lives. All of the stories presented by the speakers are personal in nature, and some of them can encroach on dark topics as addiction, abuse, self-harm, and you may be triggered by this. And if you are triggered by it, there's a beautiful lounge in the back. You can go there, give yourself a timeout, ground yourself, and then when you're ready, you can come back and join us.
Centrally located in the Richmond Auto Mall since 1984, Richmond Honda features a large selection of Honda-certified pre-owned vehicles. Inside the showroom, Honda's newest models are displayed for viewing, and the dealership is staffed 7 days a week for financial consultation. Foodie World presents Philippine Street, featuring a large selection of Filipino foods, from imported non-perishable products to both packaged seafood and locally caught and very much alive. Foodie World is 75,000 square feet of worldly groceries situated in North Richmond. Located 1 block north of St. Paul's Hospital, Downtown Denture Center features complete and partial teeth restoration options. With 35 years experience, Anthony Chung offers mobile services and emergency repair consultation 24 hours a day. Downtown Denture Center, just off Nelson at 970 Burrard in the lobby of the Electra Building. Open 7 days a week, Kingsgate Mall features shops for both men's and women's clothing, women's fashions and accessories, and footwear for everyone, prescription glasses and contact lenses, as well as shopping for his and her jewelry. Kingsgate Mall on East Broadway at Kingsway.
Matatagpuan sa 104 and 138 na may higit sa 300 sasakyan, brand new and pre-owned, ay pwede niyong pagpipilian. Bago ka pa sa bansa, wala ka pang credit score, walang problema. Marami kaming selection from all makes and models, and all trade-ins are welcome. Higit pang impormasyon sa sirmitsubishi.com.
Welcome to the show, and I'm going to open it by sharing with you an answer that I gave to people that found out about the show and then applied to speak. A lot of them say, what do you want us to talk about? And I tell them, well, I want to know the why behind your why. And they go, what does that mean? I was like, well, most people say, you're doing something and this is why, this is why you do it. Well, I want to know what caused that why to happen. And then I was finally asked, after saying that hundreds of times, then what's your why behind your why? And then they caught me off guard because I never really thought of it. So I actually I pondered this, sat in front of this person for 10 minutes in silence, trying to think about this. And then I gave them the answer. And then a couple of days later, I met up with another gentleman, and he asked me exactly the same question, and then I refined it a little bit. And when someone else asked me, I'm going, this is a test from someone up top that I really gotta get this answer down. And it goes something like this. A few years ago, more than a few is what, 3? Okay, many years ago, I was in a pretty dark space in the sense that I was going to work for the sake of working, for chasing after the almighty dollar. And then on weekends, just numbing myself with alcohol and substance abuse to survive all the pressure that I put upon myself. And it was a really dark space, and I didn't know how to get out, because why would I want to get out? So all I did was just aim down. I went further and further down the rabbit hole. Then about 5 years ago, in the world that I was in, to give you a better frame, it was like the nightlife and entertainment industry. So you're just going out and you're partying, and people are putting on these beautiful masks to hide all of the pain that they're behind, and we're numbing ourselves just to survive. Now, if you can call that an existence, when I told the story the first time, I said I was existing. When I told the story the second time, I realized what I was doing was escaping. I didn't want to deal with anything. I was just sitting there numbing myself and then going further and further down the rabbit hole because I truly believed no one would understand, no one cared, and I just got used to it. At the beginning, there was a lot of pain, and then as time went on, I just got used to it. Then about 5 years ago, a friend of mine posted up on Facebook, and I looked at her and I go, wow, you look really happy. And asked her what happened, and she got out. She got out of hell. And I was very curious, and I go, well, can you tell me what you did? And she gave me her story. And at that very moment, I realized if she could get out, I might be able to get out too. And then I asked her, so what did you do? And then we really had this heart-to-heart. And it was heart-wrenching hearing what she had to go through. But she wanted out. And at that point in time, I decided I wanted out too. So she gave me, in the dark hell that I was in, that I created in my own mind, a brief glimpse of light, and I held on to it. I reached out, held on to it, closed my eyes, and told myself, just believe, start your walk, and you will get out. You gotta believe, and you gotta get out. And it's taken 5 years. Now, by telling you this story, I'm not telling you my story is right or wrong. I'm not telling you that your story is wrong, my story is right. I'm not telling you that I'm better than you. I'm not. What I am saying, though, is if you're in this space, if you think that you're just stuck, you don't know the way out, that you feel that you're all alone, and you don't know where to go, my role here is to try and give you that glimmer of light, give you that little bit of courage to say, you can get out. And it's up to you to make that choice. And then I realize as I tell the story to you now, I can metaphorically say that this space here that I'm creating is like a lighthouse, it's like a beacon, because only people that resonate with my story will say, hey, I can get out too. But by putting 5 or 6 different people with all different stories, that's 5 or 6 different glimmers of light, 5 or 6 different examples of courage that can hit different people throughout this entire year. And that's why I do what I do. And that's the why behind my why. So, with that, now that I've taken some time, I'm going to put on the host hat and we'll get the show started. I love it. Now I feel so much better. So now that I told you about the why behind my why, it's taken 5 years. It's been hard. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. To give you an example, when I was numbing myself many years ago, I was spending $300 to $400 on my bar tabs every Friday and Saturday in alcohol just for myself. This beautiful Asian complexion is due to beautiful preservation due to alcohol. But to get away from that, like to kick that monkey, to get away from that, to get away from all these disbeliefs in my head about what I should do and all these pressures from society, you get crushed and you want to give up. And I sit there and I go, I don't know if I can take any more of this. I don't know what I can do. And one of the things, as I've crawled through hell, I've realized, and I use the hashtag a lot, never give up. And a few weeks ago, I wanted to give up. I sat there and I wanted a drink. And I was alone. I didn't have my little puppy, and my sister was gone, and all my friends were in the world of the party lifestyle, and I didn't want to be there anymore. and my skin started to itch, and then I tried to ignore it, and then it started to burn. It literally burned to the point that I had to run outside in the rainstorm to cool my skin down. I go, I don't want to give into this. And in my journey so far, I've been blessed with meeting certain people that are living embodiments of things that I want to remember and hold on to. So for me to say I don't want to give up, well, I've luckily have met someone that I just think of it. I go, you know what, for what I'm going through, for what I'm trying to resolve, what I'm trying to fight against, it's nothing compared to what he went through. So he gives me strength. And I invite Paul Henczel to the stage to share his story.
My name is Jeevan Bath. Suki Bath has been selling quality pre-owned vehicles for 37 years. All of our vehicles come with a certified inspection report, and history reports are available for all vehicles. All of our sales staff is fully licensed. Visit sukibathmotors.com today.
Foodie World has 75,000 square feet of imported and domestic products, with a large selection dedicated to our Filipino kababayans, with an in-house butcher, variety of seafood, and produce from around the globe. Open every day until midnight. Foodie World, 1 block east of Number 3 Road off Sea Island Way in Richmond.
Thank you, Winston. Who else loves this guy? Move this out of my way so I don't trip. Have you or anyone you know gone through tragedy or difficult challenges? As I share my story with you, my hope is that you can visualize and feel what it's like to move from surviving to thriving, and the steps I took to do that. The day was February 9th, 2010. It was also my son's 16th birthday. I was working as a supervisor in a sawmill, and 3 hours into my shift, I had to unjam a giant log that got stuck. The logs we were cutting are called cants. Cants are 14 inches thick, 10 to 22 feet long, and weigh at least 1,000 pounds each. It was my job to keep production moving. I made a decision to crawl into a tight, confined space to manually free up this cant that was stuck on edge against a large steel beam. This created a massive wall of wood in behind this cant. As soon as this cant was freed, someone turned on the chains, and I was immediately being crushed alive by 12,000 pounds of wood. I could hear my body cracking, gurgling, and crunching. It felt like my head was going to explode. There was so much pressure. I thought to myself, if this doesn't stop, I'm going to get ripped into 2 pieces and die. I then blacked out. My coworkers then performed miraculous feats of strength to rescue me from this machine. By the time I was freed, I was not breathing, and they all thought I was dead. I had now been unconscious and without oxygen for about 12 minutes. Right before they were about to perform CPR, miraculously I started breathing. The immense pain was overwhelming. I was fighting for every breath, and I had to remind myself to breathe in and then breathe out. I was rushed to the hospital. The ambulance ride was horrific. I could feel every vibration and bump throughout my spine. When I arrived at the hospital, I was told directly by paramedics and doctors that my organs were failing. That's what their main concern was. I also had an anoxic brain injury, a punctured and collapsed lung, multiple broken bones, and severe soft tissue damage. There was a lot of confusion and panic. I didn't understand what was happening. I felt weak, and something had to change, because I really thought I was going to die. But then I was touched by an angel. That was my wife. She was my best friend and biggest support. We are deeply in love, and she makes me want to be better. Now, I was unrecognizable to Jen at first because I had been bleeding out of my eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. I also had severe and deep bruising. My injuries were critical, but I now had hope because I wasn't alone. Now, my accident has left me with numerous invisible injuries. I have a permanent brain injury and cognitive disorder. Just imagine having a concussion that never goes away. I also have severe spine, lung, shoulder, and nerve damage. I get between 70 to 90 painful injections in my head, spine, and shoulder every 4 months to help me. Now, going through all that revealed to me who my true friends are. Now, growing up, I knew a caring family, the Dunkleys. Their house was my home away from home. They always made me feel welcome and loved. Their son, Ron, is like a brother to me and my best friend. After my accident, Ron would drive all the way to Abbotsford and take me into Vancouver for some sporting events. After one of those trips, I apologized to Ron. I thought I wasn't as much fun anymore. Ron said, "Henczel, don't be ridiculous. It was one of the funnest nights I've ever had. I'll always be here for you, brah." That meant the world to me, knowing I could always count on him. Unfortunately, a few months later, that would all change. Ron was a fireman and avid football fan. He traveled to almost every pro sports stadium in North America. He was in Seattle when he got into the most horrific accident. He was hit and dragged by a train, ripping his lower body to shreds. He went through over 40 surgeries before infection finally took over his body. I saw him take his last breath. He passed away surrounded by family and closest friends. Now, on top of everything else I was going through, I now had to deal with the death of my best friend just 11 months after my accident. In addition to all my other injuries, I also suffer from severe post-traumatic stress disorder, one of the most frustrating conditions I have to deal with. Now, one of the symptoms of PTSD is exaggerated startle reflex. So let me explain. One day I'm having a really difficult time. My entire mind and body were on edge. I went to pick up my favorite smoothie to cheer me up, the Mighty Kale. Now, the last thing I wanted to do was see or talk to anybody, so I sat at a table at the far corner with my back turned to the door. Now, little did I know, a group of people had quietly come through the door and were now standing directly behind me. What happened next? That actually happened. A loud mariachi band in Abbotsford. Now, that would startle most people, but I was having a full-on panic attack. I was shaking, I was covered in sweat, and I couldn't breathe. That feeling lasted for hours. But that's how I explain to people what having PTSD is like, a mariachi band hiding around every corner. Now, people ask me how I stay positive and overcome my challenges. I first had to let go and accept the fact that I wasn't the same person I was before my accident. I had to learn everything all over again. So I did what I could until I could do more, slowly building my confidence. I also made the choice to get better, not bitter. The only thing that stands between you and what you want in life is the will to do it and the faith to believe it's possible. To get what you have never had, you must do what you have never done. For me, that was taking action, that extra step, not making excuses. Taking that extra step meant I was able to achieve what most would consider impossible. In the last 2 years, I graduated with my bachelor's of business degree. I wrote and authored my first book, Miracle in a Mill. I co-created Story Academy. I spoke on the TEDx stage, and I am now a certified practitioner and coach of NLP. Achieving the impossible also included the most powerful strategy that has made the biggest difference in my life: embracing and telling my story. I was able to move from tragedy to triumph when I realized this wasn't the end of my story, but the beginning. When I changed my story, I changed my life. The stories of struggles and challenges are the best stories. Be honest about your obstacles and how you overcame adversity, because you can actually help and inspire others to rise above. Because everyone can relate to experiencing difficulties. You have no idea who you can help with your story. You have a story, and your story matters. Now, did you know that stories can activate up to 7 areas of the human brain? Not only are the language processing parts of our brain activated, but every other area we would use when experiencing the events of the story ourselves. In a 2006 study published in the journal Neuroimage, researchers in Spain determined that when it comes to inspiring people to understand a new change in themselves, storytelling is the only thing that works. Storytelling is one of the most powerful ways we have to communicate and motivate. To restart my life, I had to focus on what I can do, not what I can't. Remember the wood I was crushed by are called can'ts? Thinking of all the things you can't do can also be crushing. Let me explain. I would tell myself, I can't do any meaningful activity. I can't recover from this. I can't live a fulfilling life. I was crushed by can'ts, literally and figuratively. But now I'm crushing my can'ts. And I want you to know you can crush your can'ts too. Thank you.
It's worse than being cold. And that was being invisible. And I invite Beth Campbell up to share her story of just that.
Wasn't sure where you were going with that. I'd had a school-age child in my house for 32 years. Virtually everything that I knew and did was no longer. Was I born knowing that I needed to be quiet, undemanding, and not eat much? I think in vitro, these were the qualities I learned I needed to exhibit. My older brother, who was 11 months older than me, was very demanding and a voracious eater. From stories I've been told, I was very quiet, I never made a fuss, and I hardly ate anything. Outwardly, I exhibit these qualities, but inwardly, I was quietly rebellious. As a very young child, I went to $1.49 days with my mother. Do you remember $1.49 days? $1.49 day, Woodward's, $1.49 day, Tuesday. So we went to $1.49 days, and my mother bought me this really cute little pair of red socks, which is really unusual because mostly she dressed me in brown. Practical. Later that afternoon, in my crib for a nap, I completely unraveled one of the socks. I was also known for chewing the lace off the collars of my dresses and blouses, and I would meticulously unpick the threads, holding the satin binding onto my blankets. A few years later, I was observed brazenly dancing on the table at Sunday school after acing that week's exam. Not very quiet and undemanding. Growing up, I learned it wasn't okay to be me. I needed to fit in. I needed to not rock the boat. These were the voices I heard in my head. And it was the driver of everything I did. When I was 8 months pregnant with my oldest son, I was standing in line at the deli counter, Cedar Park in Surrey. People kept coming in and getting served and leaving while I continued to stand there. After quite a long while, I asked the person behind the counter why they weren't serving me. He said he didn't see me. I am fairly short and the counter's tall, but I was 8 months pregnant.
So now that you've got to experience the space that I'm creating, and if you got a glimmer of light or a bit of courage that you yourself would like to take this stage, you can apply to speak at www.mystorymondays.com, and there's a little link that says apply to speak. Send it in and we'll get you on stage.
Models are on display at Freeway Mazda. New Mazda sedans, crossovers, and SUVs surround the facility, and fully loaded versions occupy the floor of the showroom. At Freeway Mazda, 154th Street and 104 Avenue in Surrey.
Kingsway Sushi is an all-you-can-eat restaurant with a large selection of Japanese and other Asian cuisine. The restaurant is located 5 minutes from Metrotown Center on the Vancouver side of Boundary and Kingsway.